heading. So I would like to invite Tomas to come up and join us, and I would also like to give you a small token of our appreciation, which you're allowed to then put down for a couple of minutes. But Tomas, we're so delighted that you're here, and I'm going to hand the mic to you.
Thank you, Victor. So, thank you everybody. My name is Tomas Peña. I'm from Argentina. Exactly 10 years ago, I received an email from the Yield Lab calling for startup. I was a startup. I got lucky, and the mail went into spam. But somebody rescued it and said there's going to be an accelerator in St. Louis, and we applied and we got cut out. And I said I'm going anyways. And since then, I've been coming out for 11 years. I'm going to try to summarize 11 years in 5 minutes. No, 10 minutes. You're gonna give me 10. She's gonna do signals when I have to stop, but I really want to have the fireside chat with Nadine for 2 reasons. First, because it's an honor, and second, because I've been told that I need translation. There's no translation from English to English here, so bear with me. I'm going to try to talk slow, but then I'm gonna see Rachel, and I'm gonna get anxious, I'm gonna go faster. So we'll try to do the best. I'm wearing a jacket because I bought this new shirt today, and I got stained with coffee in the morning. So let's hope we can get a better day. So basically, I put this title, which is kind of like a dream that we have, like building a geospatial AI bridge between St. Louis and Latam to find solutions for smallholder farmers, sustainability, all that. And I've been sustaining this idea for many, many years. And this is something that I think is important. First, in Latin America, we're very flexible with the numbers. So this presentation done by BC in Brazil says that we're the third economy in the world. And the numbers are right because we don't add up Europe. But this is a very important powerhouse in Latin America. Has 1/3 of the natural reserves of water, and is the top producer in almost any crop, combined of course, because we add up everything. And the top 5 countries have 80% of the GDP. We produce enough food, excess of food, both in the agriculture and animal protein, to feed what's needed in Asia. So this is very important. Yet, almost 1/3 of maybe a little bit less, maybe 20% of that, of the GDP, which is 6 trillion, comes from the agri-food. And yet the innovation is not based in Latin America still. So when you look at Latin America, you have a lot of inequalities, of course. That's something that we don't talk about in another subject. But you also have 167 million of people that are highly educated and highly connected to the world. When you look at farmers, this is something that Purdue University has been doing in the last 20 years. We're comparing Argentinian farmers, Brazilian farmers, and US farmers, and Argentina has consistently come out first in many rankings. One of which is that 39% of the farmers do not own the land, right? That's very interesting because that's a very professional way of farming, because it's not someone that inherited the land or bought the land but said, there's business to be done in farming. And the other part is that in the US you have older generation, 50% of the generation, and this is something that is getting touchier by the minute with me because I just turned 55, but 50% of the farmers in the US are 50 to 69, while in Argentina that's 21%, and 31% there's 18 to 39. Still debatable if it's better to be young or old, but we can talk about that later. But what's really, really important is that everybody is very much digitalized. And one of the things I always say, I've been doing AgTech since 2011. I think I raised around $60 million in those years. So I can say I became kind of an expert, at least the only person who can say that raised that much money in Latin America, of course. 93% of everybody uses WhatsApp. And you say, why Tommy, you're here talking to Geospatial expert about Latin America, and you talk about WhatsApp. That is the most georeference tool that you guys have. If you know where the person is, you know what crop he's doing, because you have the georeference of exact georeference of that person, and you can send them tools and information and algorithms to say, hey, if you're sitting right here, right there, and you're doing row crops, you should probably be doing this activity, and we can finance it. And all that via WhatsApp, 93% penetration. When you look at the internet penetration, I'm sorry to the guys over the other side, I'm going to go to the other side now, so see you later. If you look at the penetration, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, and Chile, they're not too far distant from the US, right? We're in the same threshold, right? I have to go back to the computer. When you talk about Latin American communities, they're very open to digital technology and not very open to artificial intelligence. 5 minutes. So, the other thing that happened in Latin America when I started in 2011, the whole investment in Latin America VC was $140 million. The whole, not I, the whole. The last 5 years it was $30 billion. Not even 3% went to agriculture. So that's massive amount of money that's been left on the table for the agriculture community. And one of the reasons I'm here is because the biggest funnel of data, by far, 1,000 to 1, 1,000,000 to 1, is geospatial. So the Yield Lab Latam, which I founded in 2017, today we have $46 million fund that we only invested $8 million, and we're going to deploy more. And we are talking about how to capture this 1.2 trillion that we have it in detail. And we know exactly how to find needles in the haystack in Latin America. For that, okay, we have global visibility. I can share this with you. But this is the most important. We have the problem, the people that have pain points with the people that have painkillers. Which is, on one side, you have the investors, like Nestlé from Switzerland, Bimbo from Mexico. You have IDB Lab, somebody's related to IDB around here. IDB Lab is the biggest investor in Latin America. You have GEF, Global Environment Facility. But most importantly, guys over here, you have farmers. Farmers are at the center of our cap table. And on the other side, you have companies, that's why I'm going to the other side, that do agtech, fintech, food tech, climate tech, all related to the agribusiness. So this pool of talent is distributed unevenly around Latin America. That's why I was sharing the inequality. And you have, of course, Argentina and Brazil are the top producers of talent in this area. And Mexico was surprisingly back down. With Stephanie Regagnon, we founded this community that we're going to talk more about called Cultivar, which basically built a relationship with St. Louis to start having this conversation and copy-pasting the St. Louis model of innovation, the ecosystem. When you look at the numbers, we have mapped out 2,000 companies, most of them digital, 50% in Brazil, 20% in the Andean region, 20% in Southern Cone, and 108% in Mexico. But almost 20% of our money comes from Mexico because Mexico is really concerned about this. And we work with partnership with farmers all around Latin America. So we have CPGs on one side and we have farmers on the other side. But most importantly, we have startups all over Latam, and we have a model that shows that the biggest market achievable is around data. So that's why we're here. Basically because we did this work with Cultivar this year, we did a white paper that maybe we wrote down some ideas, but we wouldn't call it, still have time, no? 1 minute. And we validated that there's a very important finding that there's still a lot to connect between the St. Louis experts and the Latin Americans that are close to the problem. We invested, for example, in Apartado in the middle of Colombia with a group of 5 kids. They're like 30, they're not kids. But that they're really helping the banana production in Ecuador and in Colombia. We have this group in Brazil, in São José dos Campos, which we visited, which is the most important geospatial city in Brazil. And these guys are lending $200 million to the farmers in Brazil with almost no default. I can go on for a long time because there's 26 companies that we invested in. But the reason why I keep coming to St. Louis is because I think that with only in soybeans, if you add Brazil, Argentina, and the US, you have 97% of the production of the world. And that is the most geospatial, geo-referenced, geo-monitorable, whatever you want to call it, crop in the world. The easiest, the low-hanging fruits. And that was the reason why I was so happy when they invited me to talk to you guys. So now, Nadine, now you translate. Yeah, I'll see. Let me put up my time. So, there.
Cool. Thank you so much. Can we have another round of applause? So, I met Thomas at, the World Agricultural, exhibition show. It was the biggest thing I have seen in the agriculture and agri-tech because I had never seen that community. So Kevin in the back is like, he was part of the delegation. Stephanie also, I saw her earlier. So, I think we clicked because we're totally coming from the opposite sides. I'm this geospatial person who's done geospatial and all sorts of applications, aviation and defense and public safety. And then I go to this show about agri-tech, and he has all this, I think, portfolio of amazing people. Forget about the companies. I was blown away. And I did not know how much entrepreneurship was in that area of the world, and it was all around, the agri-tech. And then, as you said, like you start to talk to people one by one at these booths, and like we're using planet data, we're using sentinel data, we have drone data, we have sensors in the soil. So it was fascinating when we said, it was like, ooh, right? Next year's event should have geospatial front and center because there's obviously something there. And also, we should combine forces somehow to actually going back to the mission of TGI. We need to accelerate where we're going. So I have a few questions of my own.
On top of that, if you want, this is really interesting. This event, which is the most important innovative event in the world, started in London, then went to San Francisco, and then went to Singapore. 3 places that are not related to I, if you want. And then we convinced them to go to Sao Paulo and now open in Mexico. But the first panel was on St. Louis. I think it was Stephanie that brought the St. Louis crowd in 15 years. And it was the first time they talked about Mexico. Like, kind of crazy how the industry talks to themselves, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I want you to be free to ask questions. So think if you need, we have you said you're honored, we're the ones who are honored for you being here. So definitely this is a great opportunity of, to talk to somebody who's actually putting money, right, with the right brains and entrepreneurs for the right solutions for something that's so impactful, like you said. So it's a great opportunity if you have questions. Can I ask a quick, I think I have many simple questions. Your portfolio of companies, of startups that you're funding, can you give us some examples of what they're doing and maybe where you've seen that geospatial and whether they know it's geospatial? Like, do they call it geospatial or they just call it data?
Well, so we have 26 investments, 10 in Brazil, 7 in Argentina, and the rest all over Latam. The Brazilian companies are using a lot of geospatial data, and they're very proud of what they know, but they still, what we were talking the other day, we're working with farmers who don't know how to ask. The biggest problem in these markets are the ask. What is your pain? And do you know how can they help? And that's what we're talking about, training these people, right? Because many of the solutions have been there for 11 years, 12 years, 15 years, and now with the coming of AI and all that, they see more or easier ways to deploy that data. So yes, they do know that it's geospatial, but we still need to figure out ways to connect more with the St. Louis community. They come and they don't have that option of driving down the shelf, let's do this with this data. For example, yesterday I was in a board meeting with one of the companies that came to St. Louis and left because of funding, basically, and it's doing revenues of $1.2 million in Latin America, working with farmers. You know that startups pivot and try to find a way. But what they did was, if I knew then what I know now, 10 years later, in terms of running tests for breeders, they took it to the farmer. So they're doing testing of breeding at scale. Still need a lot of work, but they have the capacity, and they have the farmers that really value and cherish that information. But this is just some cases. We could do a lot more.
So can we dig deeper a little bit into this training? So we're gonna train, you're talking there's a gap in training, geospatial training for that community. And it's a gap to train the farmers on how to use the applications, for example, that these startups are working on, or it's training for the startups, or it's training for the researchers, or all of it?
Yeah, let me answer. This is not polite, but I'll answer your question with a question here to the room, so you are not that shy. How many people know a program for geospatial knowledge for agribusiness? And what kind of people are going to? Because if you look it up, the agronomists in Latin America, they're not seeing that capability. They're seeing the information more like an Excel sheet, and they're not using the capacity of putting that together. When you raise your hand, that's good news for me. It's not bad news. But I mean, that's a gap. I mean, we have, again, CTOs are specialized in this, and they're not getting the connection to the capability.
So data processing, so from data collection, data processing, analysis, sharing, all right.
Building that model of the funnel of big data down to insight, down to feedback and processing. The basic funnel is not something that is out of this world, and you still see, again, that farmers, I'm talking about top farmers that farm 72,000 hectares, that's 150,000, and they still talk about the pen drive. That was 2 weeks ago. And again, they're managing massive amount of data, massive amount. They invest heavily in joining machinery. Yeah, some of them they do have everything interconnected, but that doesn't mean that we're at capacity, right? We could really scale up that process.
I have now we're totally deviating, but this is very interesting. So, do you see essentially that each one of them are sort of like discovering it on their own? That's why you want to have some sort of standardized training for geospatial for that community.
Yes, for farmers, for educators. I've been to the most important university in ag in Central America. They don't have this capability. We've been to Tec de Monterrey. They don't have. Again, when I say they don't have it, it's not that they don't know it. It's that you don't have it off the shelf to say, you know what, this is the fourth generation of people learning this. It's all disintegrated. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem we've been having with geospatial for a long time, right? So don't feel too bad. It's been usually, what did they say, 80% of a project is usually in just like trying to find the data and who's got it and what should I do with it. But what I'm hearing is all the way to the off-the-shelf products for visualization, for analysis.
Data integration, analysis,
Yeah.
basic BI. Again, as we said, we have this team in Colombia that they're working on something that's very important for banana and for palm oil plantations. And you could take it at scale, and they have everything georeferenced, but they don't contextualize that information into a bigger business. Right?
All right. So I think you heard a plea here for training. So I think that's a check. Let's get a question. Yeah.
Well, that's a list of questions.
I'll get my steps now.
I mean, we should definitely talk because we have an application that's 20 years old that was built by a farmer that's been available commercially and could be adapted through language modules, regional specifics and whatnot. So there are tools out there, but it goes to your other point of the people doing this aren't good communicators generally, and that's a big opportunity is to make a difference there.
No, and again, I've been working with farmers that use a lot of geospatial information. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying that most of that information with the farmers we talk to, which are again, they basically they don't have a CTO. They don't know how to integrate the information. So I'm not saying that this is new. I'm saying that this is 20 years old, but it's not hasn't spread out in the way
Immature.
it's a 20-year-old immature guy. And that's the point I'm saying. And again, what I was trying to show you is the scale. We're talking about one of the largest producers in the world of anything that you want to share in satellite, and that's why I'm so confident that we can look at all the software, but we've been talking to the right people. We interviewed 1,100 startups in the last 7 years. There is a gap.
All right. I think many things are going to my head, but earlier, Daryl, I think your point, this community, now I like this when we started by saying we're activating this community. So this community could be activated to start pulling together resources that we're going to need for our work anyway. And we were talking about data sources. How about on the Slack channel after we leave, everybody starts sharing what data they use or what data they need, and then what tools, and then that could build. Can I pick on, yes? Yeah.
Thank you. So nice to meet you, Tomas. So earlier when you were presenting, you shared a little bit about investment going from, I think it was 104 million to what, 30 billion, you said?
In the last 5 years.
In the last 5 years.
Of the last 5 years.
But less than 3% of that was in ag.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, from the venture capitalist perspective, what's the return on the investment? Like, what are we missing? And is there a decent profit, for someone to invest in ag? And do you believe like that's a bit of the tension?
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. We invested in December 2020 in this company in Brazil at $5 million. Today it's worth 150. So it's not a return on investment problem. The problem today. I mean, we can do a venture play in Latin America in ag. The problem is that the key players are not playing. So if you look at, can I ask another question to Adele? How many banks are here? How many farmers are here? Well, you see what I'm saying? How many insurance companies are here? How many logistics companies are here? And all those are geospatial. I mean, the banks have their assets in open sky to see exactly what everybody's doing and selling products to them. And I haven't seen it at scale in the last 20 years. Of course, there are some cases. There are some cases, of course there are. But it's a black box. And that's interesting because the farmer is giving all the information away and they're selling this in something that he doesn't understand, that they learn from him. So that's why we're thinking that the farmer should really, really get involved. and really have the capacity to make the ask and say, hey guys, this is what I need. And of course, there's always somebody's going to say, oh, but this has been there. Yeah, but for some reason, it didn't have the WhatsApp effect. So my whole point about the WhatsApp effect is that the farmer, when given a product that he understands, he uses it very well. And when you look at farmers, I look at a couple of times at the kind of smartphones they got, and instead of getting the Samsung S20, they get the Samsung A20, which is half the price and it does the work. So they're very smart buyers, they're very smart people, they really need help. When you go to the top university in Europe, and you talk in the morning to the people who are doing the accelerator, they say, I'm talking to farmers, no, they're too busy. And then in the afternoon, you talk to the people who are receiving the farmers from another country, which are worth $70 million, and they talk about the plant. It's like, we're in business here. We're trying to make money, sustainable money if you want. But I mean, it's the mindset of this industry is very, very close. And again, the players are not there, and we have to invite them, and we have to invite them with solutions that are simple to use.
So that's why I'm very excited actually that Rachel is leading this, because in our previous lives, the Open Geospatial Consortium, and I think many of you have participated in that. Everything you're saying, and I think that's why I clicked with you, we experienced in the disaster response. I mean, same thing. We had technology companies and innovators doing all sorts of amazing applications. And the question was, did you show this to a first responder? Are they in the room? What does the first responder want? Or what can they handle out of all the information you're throwing at them? So I think as I want to go back to what we uncover here is not specific to the ag tech. It's this cross-discipline collaboration that has not been happening at the scale that should happen to have the impacts that you're asking for or that you're dreaming of.
I mean, these are data-driven business, right? And for example, we have a company that manages 40,000 trucks in Argentina. That's 70% of the corn and all the transport of the roads, right? And 50% of them are older than 20 years. Some are 16 years old, the truck. And when you go to a green lender and say, hey, if we only renew the truck, we cut emissions by 40%. Yeah, but that's not green lending. It's like data is changing the world, and our mindset is like, oh yeah, that's. I mean, 50% of it they're contaminating the world. Let's stop them. No, they need to go electric. There's no way that's going to happen. And that's my point. There's a lot of low-hanging fruits, and at least for what I understand for the St. Louis community to say, hey guys, we have this solved. We can help you. Why don't you guys come? Let's figure out a way to connect. With Stephanie, she went to Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and she saw that there's talent, there's money, there's interest, there's willingness, and at least 300 people we sent already in the last 5 years to St. Louis. And we still haven't been able to set up a program to place St. Louis as a geospatial hub for Latin America, which could maybe something that is not of interest. That's possible, right?
No, I think, you're pinpointing the need. I mean, that's part of the futurist thing, I think. You're seeing something that other people, they're in their day-to-day, they're not willing to change what it means, emissions thresholds, and you're seeing the possibilities, and I think you mentioned the communication part, and I think it's more than a geospatial hub. I mean, that's why we've been going around talking about rethinking collaboration. I go back to this concept of maybe it's a geospatial collaboration hub, right? There's not just the expertise, but if you have a project, and I hope this is exactly what's going to happen here, we have different people from the user to the decision maker to the tech person to the business person, and at some point we have been talking, maybe even the lawyer is also in there so that they can tell you, even though you can do the most amazing technical innovation, in reality it doesn't work because of these policies and so on. So I think if this is an opportunity for us to start, I keep going back to piloting this idea of collaboration, not just I call it we come together, and when we come together we collaborate, we deliberately actually collaborate over a period of time for a certain goal, which in this case would be next time you present you have different statistics. So can I also, because you had mentioned something about the innovation to the field, to the farmers, so I get the education and the awareness and the training. Do you also see examples where we're doing amazing things in the lab, but they don't make it? And why don't they make it eventually?
Yeah, the only write-off I have is from a scientist, right? That couldn't put together a team because he was too focused on proving his point. And what we were talking about the other day in Mexico with a research facility is that what kind of research should we do? Do a research about the systemic change that is happening right now. The research is a systemic change, not. Because of COVID, a lot of farmers realize that they need to have information because there might be a day that they cannot go to the farm. They came to realize that this tool that they were using, the WhatsApp, was very much solving a lot of their problems. They came to realize that that these machines that they were giving it all this information, they could start saving money by using that information. And that they've been working together for many, many years. But even one of the most sophisticated farming groups, a couple of years ago, I'm not going to say how many, but probably two only, which is a couple, told me, no, we process 8,000 Excels per year to gather all the information. I said, you're crazy. What do you mean 8,000 Excels? That's the wrong thing to say. You're killing data there. And they were so happy because they figured out how to manage 8,000 Excels in 2022. I was like, oh my God, let's talk.
Yeah.
they called me back.
Any questions? I see some hands up, so do you mind if
No, please. I'm scared of Rachel because carrying us off.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm wondering what kind of persona of the end user is the most impactful? Is it industry? Is it some level of government? Is it individual farmers? Who's really affecting, impacting the situation the most?
Yes, good question. I got one answer, which is API economy. The information becomes relevant if it's integrated with the core systems. If not, it's like a nice. I got the feeling from many corporate VCs that they're like complying with some KPIs and goals of saying, hey, let's look at many companies and see what we can do. But what I say to my companies is, guys, how many customers you got? 7. How many integrations? 2. Okay, you have 71 upsell. This is data-driven business, right? So it on both sides. And again, you also see it in venture capital in general. When you have such a huge growth in volume of money spent, you need a lot of capacities, and that's why it's about teaching, right? Teaching about how to integrate, teaching about how to ask, teaching about how to listen to the ask, and so it's a systemic change. It's not only one place. I don't think there's going to be one big changer. But I do know, because we're doing it, is that when farmers get involved, and farmers know how to ask, and farmers know that solution that this guy brought this year, if he doesn't get financing next year, you're going to have 2 problems. You're going to have identify the problem and the solution will be gone. So that's when people realize that open innovation for real is backed up by venture capital, and that you cannot afford to pay for the full solution. You can only get 1% or 5% of the company, or 5, and you need that this company gets as much data as possible and talks to as many people as possible. Then you realize that you become a sustainable model for innovation. So that applies to everyone, especially to universities. Don't throw anything at them.
So can I pick up on and then we go, I think I saw him in the back. can I pick up on the API economy? So what's the state, again, I mean, we've been, and I'm looking at Mark right now, we've spent our lives actually, working on APIs for geospatial in various domains. So what's the status for API economy in this field? And hence, what's the opportunity? Because again, I see this, activating this community as part of maybe putting together a cloud-based infrastructure for the resources that are used by all.
There's two learnings I have. One is called rules of engagement. Right? People need to understand what are the rules of engagement for sharing information, sharing infrastructure, and sharing customers. The second one is very sad. In 2011, I went to Seattle and I met with this guy who was a friend of mine, who was a tech guy, and he helped me figure out the startup that we were building, and the agronomist wanted to do a platform. And the guy said to me, Tomas, a platform, you need $300 million in the bank. You only have 30,000. You should be an API. And the company tried to be a platform, didn't work out, and he sold his company $5 million. So that's the difference between API and platform for me. First hand. If you want to be right, build a platform. If you want to make money, build an API and be specialized in something that you can connect with a bigger. If you look at 15, 20 IPOs of AgTech, the average is 95% down. And it was a winner takes all attitude. This is not nobody's going to give you the total value of that 1.2 billion in Latin America, or the 5 trillion, 1.2 trillion, sorry, or the 5 trillion, 6 trillion. Nobody's going to have control over that. So if you have something that you find that is a black hole and that you can do and fix it, go and do it very, very brightly and try to get as many people to sell your product without having a very strong commercial team. The problem when companies come from Latin America to the US is to retain talent. It's very hard for me to bring a company here and maybe pay him the basic salary and say, I'll give you stocks, and he gets the same money at UPL. He goes to UPL because he knows that UPL will be here next year. So there's this very interesting problem. That's why I think it's so needed to be taught by, because it's a complex problem. It's easy, but it's complex at the same time.
You can go to someone. I've answered my own.
All right, I love this.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I enjoyed the conversation. And my question is, if you think about the farmers making decisions in cultivation and growth, is on the one hand is about the economic decision, but on the other hand is always about the expression of a social relationship. So people making decisions, and those decisions embedded in the family decision, the king's decision, and the community. Are there good examples that incorporating that social condition data, if you like, into the geospatial perspective?
Yeah, I agree 100%, and that has been one of the issues. We haven't found the Tinder of agriculture, but that's the way the market is going. So again, that's why I think that the farmer should really get involved and say, what is he willing to surrender, if you want, because they see that digitalization is surrendering the sovereignty of making decisions, and they're right. But that doesn't mean that, what I tell them is, you guys have Netflix? Okay, look, now it's 3 years old, look at the Avocado War, Rotten, the series, and they tell you that if you're not compliant, they stop buying from you. You want to be there? No. You want to run out of water? No. You want to have a problem that the city around you is taking you as the bad guy? No. You want to prove that you're doing everything right. So I agree with you, and that is the key, one of the key problems, but that's why I was also signaling to my detriment that the younger people are more open-minded, right? And they want to save the world, and they have other principles, and for them it's a sunken cost because they would probably sell the farm anyway. So once I take over the farm, I either sell it or digitalize it. And that's another point that of 39% that was landless, right? This is becoming more and more professional.
I mean, I wonder if, again, one of the projects could be around modeling and simulation, right? So we model some of these scenarios so that we can go back to these farmers and say, look, we ran this simulation and over 10 years you'll be out of business, or, you know, or you'll be twice as rich and there'll be a king. But again, just planting some seeds when we talk about, you know, we have digital twins of everything these days, so we could run some of those with some of the data in Latin America.
So
Yes,
now-
you remember a different one?
The genius inside. So your comment about, you know, it's about surrendering the sovereignty of decision making, right? We see this in farmers who don't want to give up the reins to the son and the daughter. So I'm thinking about how, you know, when box cakes came along and households you could make a cake out of a box, and the housewives didn't like it because they didn't feel like they were baking the cake themselves. So when they made it that, oh, here's the box, but you have to add an egg and a cup of oil, then the housewives, their psychology, they were like, oh, I'm making the cake. So is it about creating technologies that kind of, and then bringing them back a step so that the farmer still feels like they have the information, but they still feel like they've got this sovereignty of decision making? It's almost like we're not giving them the whole lot. We're taking the egg out, so they have to put it back in.
There's so many answers to that question about the quality of the cakes on the box and diabetes. But no, basically, these are very smart people. These are business people. They manage, again, they have on the ground $50, $70 million. All the smallholder farmers, they do have a small farm that might not be worth as much, but this is really their life. And we have to understand that, remember, I was at a bank, I'm a banker, I don't know if you realize. I have to talk something about Argentinians too, because I have to apologize, because Argentinians, we were very humble until we won the World Cup this year. And now we're very, very energetic about what we think. But what you see is that the farmers really want to get involved. They really understand that this is a danger. They really understand that there could be money made out of that, and that, for example, this whole fund started with 15 farmers, 15 farmers that put the seed money to open the fund, and now we're at $47 million. So it's not something that that the farmer doesn't understand. Of course, once you start drinking, they say, "Oh, you're evil, Tomas." No, we're trying to get you in this, because traceability will make a more sustainable world, and you're taking out the risk of being left out of markets, either sophisticated market or market at all. And so they see that there's a trade-off. And the biggest trade-off they could have is to be part of this transformation. And that's what I mean. We brought, again, many farmers, and the farmers want to talk about business, and they see this as a business opportunity. The knowledge economy is a very important economy nowadays, and this is knowledge economy 100%. Right? So it's a little bit of a transformation. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, things are changing.
So let me, one more question and then we close. All right.
Hey, very quick question. So in my experience, to like reach farmers is very hard. Not like, as you said, like learning curve is very short, fast, and they understand the messaging. But how to reach them? Can we use this kind of geospatial communication systems? You know, because the thing is that the message get to them. Most of them, I'm talking in Peru, in some areas in the Andes, they don't have connectivity. So how we can do to get the message to them, in a sense that, in particular, my experience was like using radio, you know, But from your experience, what is the best way to go in that way and reaching them?
My experience was talking to my mom over the radio when she was in DC. But things change. I mean, today, for $50, you can, nobody's taping this, or we are, okay. But you can get Starlink anywhere in the world, and so that's today, again, to put it in a controversial way, to me, it's an excuse. Because you know that there are cooperatives, and between the cooperatives, they could put a place, and that place could be like the healing center of Peru. It's because you only need a place like this, Wi-Fi, and air conditioning, or at least a ventilator inside. So I think that many of the pictures that we are taking on the ag-tech world, first, I don't believe it's ag-tech, because I don't see any tech companies. Sorry if there's somebody in the room for a tech. But I don't see any tech companies really playing hard investments in agriculture. There's almost none. There's almost, how many phone companies are here? The list is amazing. I mean, we're talking 90% use WhatsApp. And in Africa, they changed many things with M-Pesa, which was a mess. This is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes everybody is going deep on the next big thing, and there's a humongous mountain here that we can all make money out of with the most simple technology. That could open a lot of insights, that could change the world. And that is the proposal that we're doing.
Yeah. So let me conclude with when we were having our prep, call. You were so passionate about the urgency. You're like, Nadine, this is urgent. We got to do something. You're kicking off the workshop. So it's urgent. What should we do? What do you think we should do? Again, we're here to inspire and activate this community.
No, as you said, work with pilots. And Stephanie knows, we know almost everybody that could bring here ideas, and we could create spaces to collaborate. That's one place. The second place is virtuality. Train the trainers, and that is the farmers, the educators, the government, the corporations. The top 50 producers of agriculture in Latin America don't have a corporate VC, and probably don't know really what a corporate VC is. And again, the numbers are staggering, they're growing. So there's a new market, there's a new opportunity. And I think it's distributed, and you can do it from St. Louis, you can do it from Trujillo in Peru, or you can do it, I shared the map really quick, but we're all over the place. You've been to South Campus, and you were amazed at what's happening there, right?
So, pilot, collaborate, and train are all sort of urgent opportunities that this community can help with, and a pathway towards collaboration.
And invite all the people that are not in the room, right? Banks, the phone companies. You have the information, you have the buyer, and you have the channels, and you're not using it.
Sounds good. We have 2 more workshops with this initiative. So, yes, thank you so much, Thomas.